Evening, folks. Welcome back. This is John Pettipas recording at 10:37 p.m. on Friday evening, which is the 12th day of February 2021. I want to thank all you wonderful viewers for tuning in, and I'm doing my President's Day video. I wanted to do this last year, and I got a special prompt, and I didn't get to use it last year because another matter come up, and I made a video on another matter, but this year I'm doing it. President's Day video. And first of all, I want to give a shout out to Jeff Hanley of Middleton, Annapolis County, Nova Scotia. Middleton, Annapolis County, Nova Scotia, and the floor of the Annapolis Valley. They've taken our premier, and for the last 7.5 years, hails from actually Annapolis County, Upper Granville, and in his constituent's office is in Middleton. So Jeff Hanley, he's a big man in agriculture. He does horses, cattle, and at one time in the recent years they did apples. So they say if you had something to eat today, and I just had, after supper, I was still hungry because it's cold. You burn extra energy when it's cold. And I had a tuna fish salad, whole can of Soviet's Air Compliments tuna fish with onions I grew myself, and Air Compliments mayonnaise and so on. But you can hear me and you can see me, but you can't smell my breath of the tuna fish on the video. Anyway, if you had something to eat, you can thank a farmer. And I'm going to get around to farmers, so it's quite appropriate. I'm giving a shout out to a new subscriber, Jeff Hanley, Esquire, from Middleton, Annapolis Valley, Annapolis County, Nova Scotia. Now, today is the President's Day video, because this Sunday is Valentine's Day, Monday is President's Day. It's a big day. It's important. National holiday. Now, I just got finished watching the PBS NewsHour. And every night this week, they went on. I said, God, I do this to get some news. 25 minutes past 7. The show starts at 7 if you get the PBS Eastern feed out of Boston on PBS East. Or 10 o'clock if you're using PBS West out of Seattle, Washington. Anyways, an hour show. And they're going on, and President Trump did this, or allegedly did this, or President Trump's responsible for this, and responsible for this. And I said, women are going to get news. They're going to shut them out in this. Now, that was they spent 16 hours, the Democrats, I have another name for them, starts with D and ends with bag. Okay, anyway, dirtbag, the dirtbag Democrats. They go ahead there and they go on and on. They took 16 hours, 5, 10, 15, and one more. 16 hours it took. The defense only needed 3 hours. Anyway, every night, 15, 20 minutes of PBS NewsHour sprouting it out. Now, today I happen to watch Charlie Kirk did a wonderful piece on live broadcast from the Senate floor of the impeachment trial in the defense by President Trump's very capable, truth was on their side, and they just presented the facts what they were. And so they didn't take any of his words out of context, they put it in entirety. So it was very well done. Tonight, the PBS News are a little bit late in coming on. It did opening preamble, the sponsors of the show, and something else, and what their headlines were going to be for the evening. And it wasn't about 3.5 minutes, almost 4 minutes past 7 come on. I pressed a little clicker. It gives the time at the top corner of the screen. At 8 minutes past 7, it was 4 minutes. The guy was literally giving 4.5 minutes of time on what the president's fence was. Then it went over to some senator. Blah, 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 blah. So they gave more like 18 to 20 minutes every night for the last 3 or 4 nights to the Democrats' prosecution case, and they gave literally not even a full 5 minutes to the president. They retired for his first term. He'll be back for a second term in 2024, but first, like President Grover Cleveland. I said President Trump will be the first president to ever serve 2 terms, two-term president, but not consecutive. And actually, in the 1800s, there was a President Grover Cleveland. And Grover Cleveland had 1 term, Then he lost to President Harrison, and he came back again after for another 4 years. So he had 2 terms as well, but they weren't consecutive. President Trump will do the same thing another 3 years and 8 months. Time flies, folks. 3 years and 8 months. So, un, deux, trois, 1, 2, 3, as we say in French, and then 8 months. What's that? Anyhow, back to the thing. Today, President's Day video. In this month's Bits and Pieces booklet, there's some wonderful wisdom in it. I'm just going to look here what some of the wonderful words of wisdom are on President's Day. It's called President's Day, Tots on President's Day. Tots on President's Day. And I take, one comes to mind is here, the friend in my adversity, I shall always cherish. I'm going to repeat that. The friend in my adversity, I shall always cherish. I will better trust those who help me relieve the gloom in my dark hours than those who are so ready to enjoy with me the sunshine of my prosperity. I'm going to repeat that one more time. The friend in my adversity, I shall always cherish most. I can better trust those who helped to relieve the gloom of my dark hours than those who were so ready to enjoy with me the sunshine of my prosperity. And the president said that was U.S. Grant, Ulysses S. Grant. There was a lady who was member of Parliament in Pictou, Roseanne Stokes, a member of Parliament back in the 90s. And I was dealing with a matter, and I was speaking to her, one of her assistants. And the guy was graduate university and was going to Catholic seminary to become a priest, and he's since been fully ordained, finished theology, and he's a Catholic priest. And I made a comment on something one day, and I never forgot to comment. It was a very upbeat, positive guy, but he said, John, success is everybody's child, and failure is an orphan. Success is everybody's child, and failure is an orphan. How true in life sometimes. Here's another great one. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose. Second quote here, there's 5 of them. I'm only using 2 of them, time permits, and 2 of them stand out in my mind. Yesterday is not ours to recover, but tomorrow is ours to win or lose, and it's Lyndon Baines Johnson, known as LBJ. He finished President Kennedy's term after assassination in 1963, last year after Kennedy's only term, and he also won his own term in 1964 to 1968, and he ruled at a very difficult time. The Vietnam War was on, he inherited it, and he did his best. He passed the civil rights bills, which many people have benefited from so much, and people forget it was the Republicans. It wasn't the Democrats. The original members of the Ku Klux Klan were all Southern Democrats. I'm going to repeat that. The original members of the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, were all Southern Democrats. That's a fact. And they hated President Lincoln for Emancipation Proclamation, giving the black people, the former slaves, their freedom. And the Dixiecrats come along and so on. They eventually metamorphosed some of them into Republicans, but the LBJ could not pass his Great Society, his Bill of Rights, Civil Rights. Bill of Rights was way before he was on the scene. The Civil Rights bills of the early and mid-60s, he couldn't have passed them without Republican support. He couldn't carry his own, and he knew how to negotiate. And he what did somebody say one time? He said he had the telephone numbers of the senators and members of Congress, and he phoned them, and he invited them over to White House for meetings, and sometimes occasionally a lunch, working lunch, dinner, or supper, and he knew how to politics. So we can never forget that. The Democrats that go up and brag about their so-for civil rights, not so. So the man I'm going to focus on this evening, primarily, is Harry S. Truman. Finished the rest of what would have been President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR's fourth term, and got his own term in 48 to 52, and he was quite the man. And I often referred to him as the last Democrat in the White House in the past 50, 60 years that one could be proud of. Actually, it's more like now 70 plus years, because 47 to 50, 47 and 52 and 50, so 48 to 52, so 52 to 40, 48 years, 60, almost 70 years, 69 years, almost 70 years. So the Democrat in the last 70 years can be proud of in the White House is Harry Truman. But I will say, I do have a soft spot for Lyndon Baines Johnson. Was he perfect? Far from it. He ruled a difficult time, but history will be and has been kind to LBJ. Was he perfect? No, he's a mere mortal with all his human faults and failings. But he was a decent president especially for Democrats. Now, back to why I have my lobster bib on. This is a lobster bib. Okay, I'll get to that in a minute. Harry Truman was part of the old Pendergast political machine out of Chicago. Okay, and originally seemed to be a machine-type politician, and he was going to be a yes man, and the big old bosses with the cigars in the back room would tell him what to do, and he'd do as told as a puppet. But Harry Truman was nobody's puppet, and he had a famous story he loved telling. If it was a fall relishing, he relished telling. If it was a county fall fair agricultural exhibition, if it was a farming convention, if it was a Democratic fundraiser, he loved the story. So I'm gonna change hats. Like a red, white, blue one. I'm gonna change hats. I'm gonna get into my farming. It's the Hogs and Heifers Saloon in New York City. I'm not a fan of. I'm more of a milk guy. I'm a milk guy. I'm not a liquor guy. But anyway, it's a nice firm cap, and I'm going to wear it. So these farmers went to convention. They went up to Chicago of course, Harry Truman was from Independence in Clay County, Missouri, the Show Me State. His mother said, no, this is the age of horses. No farm teenage boy could plow or straight a drill. He'd get that prairie soil in the spring or maybe in the fall. For the following year, let it fallow over the winter and rot the sod, breaking the new ground. Breaking the sod. No farmer could do no teenage boy could do a better job than her son, Harry S. Truman. He was a remarkable man. So anyway, he participated in farming. He was a veteran of World War I and a great guy. Anyhow, the farmers all went up. They all went up from Missouri and other Midwestern states up to Chicago, this big convention. And the waiter brought out a plate, and it had a salad on it, a tossed salad. Cucumbers, tomatoes, lettuce, I don't know, maybe a bit of purple cabbage, something, a salad. So that was fine. He dealt with that one. Then they brought out a bowl of, because it was farmers, they brought out some consommé soup. It's a tin soup with a bit of barley in it, in a beef stock. They brought out the bowl of soup, and he dealt with that. Finally, they come out with a platter, and on the platter it had, can you see this, good folks? It had a lobster, my famous Mr. Lobster, M. Humar, had lobster. And at that, the farmer indignantly looked at the waiter, and he said, no, enough. Look, he says, I ate your bouquet, because he wasn't used to eating salads. He was a meat and potatoes guy. I ate your bouquet so that all the salad greens could up look like flowers. I ate your bouquet. I drank your dishwater. Okay, looked like dirty dishwater. That's before they had these commercial dishwashers. I drank your dishwater, but finally he looked down at the lobster. He looked at the lobster, and he says, I'll be damned if I'll eat your bug. I'll be damned if I eat your bug. Well, it's true. It's true. And I read a book in Harry Truman. He must have told that story 30, 40 times, 3 or 4 dozen times in his lifetime. He was another story, Harry Truman. I served a guy and his wife lobster one night from Kansas City, Missouri. And I said, Kansas City, Kansas City, Kansas, no, it's a state of Kansas, it's Kansas City, Missouri. And he said, I said, Harry Truman was from Missouri. He said, I'll tell, and I told him the story. He said, I'll tell you a story about Harry. This was a joke Harry Truman told, okay? But the other one was no joke. They take in, this guy is a young articling lawyer, and in the Midwest, the streets are almost like a boulevard you'd see in France or Broadway, New York. And the cars park in, instead of one behind the other, they park at an angle, okay? There's big wide streets. So anyway, the young guy is in town, and this is in the first term now. President Truman has finished his, as I said, FDR's fourth term. And in 48, he won. They famously held up the newspaper and they said, Dewey wins! Okay? And next morning, Harry Truman was out of it, went to bed, and he said, what'll be. He got his good night's sleep, and he held up the paper showing Dewey won, but the votes had come in from the far west, Utah, Nevada, and California, and he'd actually won the presidency on his own in 1948. Anyway, this is after he'd finished his full term of his own, post-52, so it'd be 53, 54, this young lawyer was in the 70s when I served him about 8 years ago, and him and his wife, lovely people, and he seen former President Harry Truman going into the local haircutting place. He always believed in support a local barber shop. You get a haircut, get a clipping. So a trim. And he hauled it over, crossed the big wide boulevard. He said, and there's no secret service, no security guards. He's just by himself walking down with his famous well-dressed guy, walked briskly, and he lived a ripe old age. He used to go for a walk every day, and he had his kind of fancy gentleman's cap on. So he said, how do you do, Mr. President? And Harry Truman hollered, that's not a word of lie, Harry Truman hollered back across the street to him, I do as I damn well please. And that's a true story. How do you do, Mr. President? And Harry Truman hollered back across the street, I do as I damn well please. And he did. He was a wonderful president. He is the gentleman that in 1947, I'm just going to push Larry Lobster aside for a second here. Great guy. Love you, Larry. But here, Mr. Lobster, M. Homar, as we say in French. M. Homar, Homar is French for lobster. And I don't know how to say it in Spanish, but I know French and English. It tastes good anyway. They've taken, so what happens is he was instrumental in approving, he approved the Marshall Plan of General George Marshall to rebuild Europe and Germany after World War II. And we spent billions of dollars in them dollars. That nowadays would be tens of billions. And I'd like to see any other country in the world, not Russia, not the Soviet Union, not communist China, not Germany. I'd like to see any other country in the world, after trying to take over the world, that they go in and spend billions to rebuild that country. And that's what the United States did. It was called a Marshall Plan, and that was approved and signed into law by President Harry S. Truman in 1947. And it basically led to peace in Europe and the rebuilding of Germany into a democracy eventually, and ultimately, okay, that'd be 47, so 89, 40-some years later, the reunification of Germany. Anyway, they're reunified. I could make a comment on whether I would have approved to be reunified or not, but that's a video for another day. He recognized the state of Israel in 1949, the blessed state of Israel, modern-day Israel. He recognized the state of Israel, and also, of course, back in 45, he had to make the decision to drop the atomic bomb, which is a horrible weapon, but had to be used to shorten the war, to spare lives of civilians and soldiers on both sides. And so he made the decision to drop the atomic bomb in 45. In 47 was the Marshall Plan in Europe, put together by General George Marshall, but with input from the president and signed a law by President Truman, as I repeat, Harry S. Truman, and recognized Israel. He was a remarkable guy. He was a remarkable president. One time he voted Republican. I said, "What? You're Democratic representative and now vice president, now president? You are?" Yes. He said the man. He was some guy in World War I, because Harry Truman was a veteran of World War I, and he said, "I seen that guy keep his cool and lead us, his soldiers, in conditions in battle that I couldn't imagine hell being any worse." That's in a book in Harry Truman. He said, "I seen that man lead us and keep us cool under fire in conditions that I couldn't imagine hell being any worse." So Harry Truman might be Democrat, but I often say he's the last Democrat in the White House he can be proud of, although I do have a soft spot for LBJ. So I applaud Harry Truman. He was a wonderful president. He was in a show-me state. I remember 1972 that he died. He was 88 years old in 72. So 1972 he died. About the same year, I think the year between when Lester B. Pearson died. 72 or 73, so he was 88 years old. You go back from 47 he became president, 57, 67, 77. Well, about 25 years after he first became president. So he must have been 63, is that right? 63, 73, 83, yeah. He must have been 63 years old when he first assumed the presidency of the United States. And he was a remarkable man, and the great state of Missouri, the great wonderful people of Missouri. I've been speaking to somebody that's located in Jefferson County, Missouri. But Harry Truman was from a place community called Independence in Clay County, Missouri. And with that, folks, I'm going to wrap this up. We take President Trump was our 45th president. Biden is the 46th. And good Lord willing, everything works out, President Trump will be the 47th president again. So I wish you all I went on a lot longer than I normally do. I wish you all a pleasant rest of the evening, weekend, a happy Valentine's Day to all you wonderful viewers. Spread this video around and appreciate when we have good presidents, because sometimes we have bad presidents, so it's President's Day, and we wish you all a happy President's Day, and we pray for all our presidents and those that will serve as president in the future. And next time, this is John Pettipas wishing you all the best, and God bless, and thank you, Larry Lobster, for making another appearance on my YouTube channel. Thank you, and good night now. Bye for now.